Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The Polish President, Andrzej Duda, attended a meeting of the Bucharest 9 initiative which took place in the city of Košice in Slovakia. The Secretary-General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, also took part in the meeting, the main topic of which was regional security, threats from hybrid warfare and cybersecurity. This year's meeting of the B9, which comprises the Visegrad Four, the Baltic states and Romania and Bulgaria, also marked the 70th anniversary of the signing of the North Atlantic Treaty, as well as the 20th anniversary of Poland, Hungary and the Czech Republic joining NATO, and the 15th anniversary of the remaining members of the B9 joining the alliance.
This year's Bucharest 9 initiative is taking place on the 70th anniversary of the signing of the North Atlantic Treaty and 20th anniversary of Poland, Hungary and the Czech Republic joining the NATO alliance. It is also the 15th anniversary of individual members of the B9 joining the alliance. The main subject of the meeting was NATO security, as well as the danger coming from the east, which includes disinformation, hybrid threats and cybersecurity. The President of Poland, Andrzej Duda, along with the Presidents of Slovakia and Romania, touched on these problems during the press conference.
We all agreed that today's main problem is the return of Russia's imperial ambitions, which is ongoing, which is a fact and to which we all must react adequately. I was talking earlier about strengthening the presence of the alliance in the Black Sea region. It's important to show our defensive readiness. The North Atlantic Treaty has to consider this very attentively. We talked about increasing the readiness and presence of the NATO alliance in our parts of Europe. We all agreed that this presence should increase. We also agreed that there should be more soldiers from the allied nations in our area. There is a common need for this. To feel secure, we must show our readiness and scare them off.
This morning, Polish President Andrzej Duda met with the Hungarian and Estonian presidents in the afternoon. Poland plays a key role in the safety of the eastern part of NATO, which is formed by B9 countries.
Parents of school children in Warsaw organised a very popular and successful campaign against the LGBT plus declaration, which was adopted by the local government authorities in Warsaw on the order of the newly elected mayor. Parents, who disagree with what they see as the inappropriate promotion of pro-homosexual ideology in Polish schools, had used the social media platform Facebook to express their views until Facebook blocked their campaign. The Minister of Education said that age-appropriate sex education already exists in Polish schools and that the mayor's proposals conflict with the current law in this area.
Last week, Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski signed off the so-called LGBT+ declaration, which raised eyebrows among some parents and educators all over Poland. Critics of the declaration are afraid school children will be ideologically brainwashed and are particularly concerned about such an early introduction of sex education with an LGBT emphasis. A group of parents in Warsaw set up a Facebook page called Parents Strike and a group, the Parental Striking Committee, both of which were quickly blocked by Facebook. The matter was brought to the public's attention by attorney Jerzy Kwaśniewski from Ordo Juris Institute. He said that is, no doubt, an example of preventive censorship.
Dostaliśmy informacje od założycieli szeregu stron na Facebooku, rodziców, którzy chcieli skorzystać z naszych materiałów, aby protestować przeciwko edukacji seksualnej narzucanej przez ratusz warszawskim szkołom, o tym, że strony zostały po kilku godzinach zamknięte, bez jakiegokolwiek wyjaśnienia. Oczywiście postaramy się naświetlić okoliczności i przyczyny tego wyeliminowania profilu, grupy, wydarzenia z Facebooka. Natomiast od razu narzuca się myśl o tym, że mamy do czynienia nie tylko z cenzurą prewencyjną, ale przede wszystkim z cenzurą nakierowaną na treści o bardzo konkretnym charakterze, na treści związane z protestem rodziców przeciwko propagandzie LGBT.
They do not want to be seen as agitators expressing anti-LGBT opinions, calling for a fight with city policies. This requires some courage and might expose a person to retaliation. We cannot expect that from the parents.
Nie chcą
Polish citizens are the only ones in the world who have a right to appeal the Facebook decision with support from the Ministry of Digital Affairs. We heartily encourage people to do just that by using the obywatel.gov.pl website. We have a very high success rate of over 50%. This is not the first case of censorship by Facebook. Earlier, other groups were targeted, like national Polish groups, independence march groups, or right-wing publicists like Rafał Ziemkiewicz, Tomasz Terlikowski and Witold Gadowski.
Today marks the 75th anniversary of the massacre of Poles in Huta-Peniacka, a village in what is now Ukraine and which did not survive the war. On February the 28th, 1944, a unit of SS Galieczen Division, made up of Ukrainians and led by a German officer, supported by formation of the Ukrainian Insurgents Army and members of the local population, committed this horrendous crime. Some 850 people, which is almost all of the villagers of a Polish ethnic background, were murdered. Although the annual National Day of Remembrance of the Cursed Soldiers takes place on March the 1st, some of the ceremonies and events connected with it have already begun. The Cursed Soldiers, or Indomitable Soldiers, are the names given to those groups of the Polish anti-communist military underground that continued to fight on against the Soviet Union following the end of the Second World War.
The conference concerns a new project of the Institute of National Remembrance aiming to pay homage to the members of the post-war youth anti-communist underground active between 1944 and 1956. Additionally, publications and educational posters, as well as permanent memorial projects, were prepared by the Institute of National Remembrance on the National Day of Remembrance of the Cursed Soldiers, including commemorative plaques of the representatives of the youth conspiracy. Leaving these permanent signs of memory within the walls of schools is of great value because it has been noticed that not only the youth but also the school staff are not always aware of the events that occurred in their school, so the boards that students will now pass every day when they come to class at school will tell them about this ethos, about the sacrifices of their older colleagues, their predecessors. This year we especially want to remember the so-called forgotten link, several thousand young people who, at the apogee of Poland's Sovietization, at the turn of the 1940s and 1950s, stood up against the communist system. They were all in their teens and formed spontaneous groups in almost every major school. Jarosław Szarek also informed about the initiatives of the Institute of National Remembrance surrounding the National Day of Remembrance of the Cursed Soldiers. The actions of the Institute surrounding the National Day of Remembrance of the Cursed Soldiers is extensive. These are not just publications, we have films, but above all there are also comics, which have already been made into short animated films. Tomorrow there will be hundreds of ceremonies across the country. One of the most important ones will take place at Łączka, the meadow in the Warsaw Military Cemetery Powązki, where many of the murdered Cursed Soldiers were secretly buried in unmarked mass graves, with their remains being found in recent years. Our foundation will host a commemoration ceremony. It will start, as usual, at noon. We will read out a roll call of the fallen and lay down flowers. A ceremony will also take place in the former prison yard of the infamous Mokotów prison, where many Cursed Soldiers were executed. The site has recently been turned into a museum. Tomorrow, on the anniversary of the death of Colonel Łukasz Ciepliński and his fellow soldiers, we will commemorate them in a special place, at the place of their death in front of the so-called Wall of Death, where they were executed by a firing squad. It will be the first time visitors can lay down flowers here. The Museum of Cursed Soldiers and Political Prisoners of the Polish People's Republic was created in 2016 by the Minister of Justice Zbigniew Ziobro. It will be one of the largest museums in Poland, with an exhibition measuring 7,500 square meters.
That's it from the news. Thank you for watching. But do stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more besides. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
Good evening, welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Overnight lows will be from -2 degrees in central Poland, also in the area of Lublin and Olsztyn. The maximum temperature tonight will be 4 degrees Celsius in the area of Wrocław. Tonight the weather will be dry with a few clouds here and there, but also with a lot of clear sky. If we look at tomorrow, we will see that the maximum temperature will be 9 degrees Celsius in the western parts of the country, as well as in Krakow. Warsaw will see 5 degrees with sun and clouds, and 6 degrees will be seen in Łódź, also in Bydgoszcz. The minimum temperature tomorrow will be 2 degrees in the northeast around Białystok. The forecast for the next 3 days. On Thursday, the maximum temperature will be 7 degrees Celsius in the southwest part of Poland. The minimum will be 2 degrees in the northeast. On Sunday, 11 degrees will be the maximum and the minimum will be 6 degrees in the northeast again, and on Monday, 11 degrees. In most parts of the country, 13 degrees though will be the maximum in the southeast and 7 degrees in the northeast, which will be the minimum. This is all for tonight. Thank you.
Poland Daily Business Edition, and in our studio is Mr. Maciej Hutkiewicz of TVP3 Warsaw. Sir, welcome to the show.
Good day to you.
And let us see the situation of the Kim-Trump summit in Vietnam. That's quite an event, or just another uneventful meeting?
No, I don't think it's an uneventful meeting. I think it's a very rare event. They met last time 1 year ago in Singapore, as I remember. So if two persons like that, like Trump and Kim, they meet each other once a year, I think it's not a bad idea. But it is an event, and I think it's an important event also for Poland, maybe.
Critics will say that the president of the biggest, most powerful country in the world is not unnecessarily lifting the importance of the hereditary ruler of communist despotia.
Yeah, of course, we can say that. But on the other hand, we can say that maybe it's the right way to talk to Kim. Maybe he just needs somebody very important to talk to him, so he could only think that he is important also.
Why this is important for Poland?
Well, if we have some war in Korea Peninsula, it won't be a very good situation for Poland, for the whole world. So I think it's an important situation for Poland. And also if Kim had some stable situation and Trump has a good situation in Asia, he can focus on what's going on in Poland, and maybe we can do better with America.
There is a general policy of containing Russia and containing China, and some say that by this meeting, Mr. Donald Trump is taking over North Korea, who was clearly a tool to distract Americans' attention from the more important places.
Yes, of course, that can be true. Of course, we had to say about the situation involving Russia and China, because it's, of course, the two most powerful countries in this area. Especially China, I think that, of course, they had problems with North Korea for last years, and Kim wouldn't listen to China leaders for the last years. So Trump is trying to do something with that, and he's the first president really that have tried to do something with that. He met with Kim and he talked to him. Of course, nothing really happened for the last year. But we hope that after this meeting in Hanoi, in Vietnam, there will be some denuclearization, very tough word for Polish people. So let's hope that there will be some kind of situation that is very good for this whole area.
We had the meeting that started the first thing they done. I mean, Donald Trump and the president of Vietnam was striking a deal, signing a contract about 110 Boeing aircraft for Vietnamese airlines. That means that the American president is also a salesman for American products and services.
Well, he used to be a businessman for all his life, so it's not nothing. I think I'm not impressed because of that. I mean, when some big American politician comes to Poland, they usually always sell something to us. And
last time we had this deal signed by Mike Pompeo and Vice President Pence.
And this is how we should always do the same, but we are not, unfortunately.
We don't, but it is a matter of having a right product, of course, on the right price. From the point of view of South Korea, only recently the United States demanded that South Korea should raise their financial input into the hosting American soldiers. This is something very similar to what is offered by Poland and to us. And this is despite the lowering the tension with North Korea.
Yeah, I mean, this is not something that I'm concerned about. I mean, Trump used to say many times that if you want to have like American soldiers on your ground, you have to pay for that. And it's nothing really, I would say, like very dangerous for the situation or for peace. I mean, if we want to have some American soldiers on Poland ground, we said, okay, we will pay for it. And I think it's fair. And I don't know if Korea, the South Korea is paying for that or how much they are paying for that. But if America says that you have to pay more, probably they have to do that.
They have to do that because that's their insurance policy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Which lets... well, South Korea is an extraordinary example. The country that was lifted from the extreme poverty like in 1950, which is difficult to believe. There was a humanitarian mission distributing food and clothes from Somalia.
From Somalia.
Somalia government sent their humanitarian mission to Korea. And where is Somalia right now? Where is Korea? Korea is...
Well, yeah, but as you probably remember, in 80s, Poland sent some sleeping bags to New York, you know.
That was only PR standards. No actual sleeping bag was sent. The question for us is, to what degree we can repeat the path of the South Korea in developing our economy, companies, export, products for world market while being under the same American umbrella.
Of course, this is the idea that many people in Poland are telling about. South Korea had some really big companies. They used to have it for years. Like there was a Daewoo, maybe you remember. They had cars, they had TV, they had refrigerators, they had everything, but they collapsed later. But now they had like Samsung, they had cars like Kia and some other. Of course, Poland is in a different situation because like...
We're part of European market and we cannot guard ourselves from the product incoming from Germany, France, Italy.
That's true,
Spain.
but because of that, they are paying us like some money from Brussels.
And also our companies, even the small one, can export to the huge markets of Western Europe.
They can try, but this is not so easy. Like Polish transport companies are trying to compete in the European market, and the European countries are trying to say, no, you shouldn't do that because it's unfair for us.
One thing that was successful, getting a quarter of the transport or of the shipping market between the local cities.
If you just go to Germany or in France, you can see that the trucks, most of them are Polish.
That's true, and drivers too, but this is why they've changed and banned the regulation of European Union.
Yes, of course. And this is the different situation that in Korea, right? You are completely true. But I think that we have to think like Korea did for the last 50 years. So they
banked on the export to the United States.
Yep. Well, this is very difficult right now. The time has changed, and it's not so easy to export anything to the United States right now. But we have to try, of course. We have to talk with the United States, and we have to make it just a good business with them.
On the exchange that we can finance your army here, it's not about please open up your market for our products?
Yes, of course. There are a lot of things that we will pay for the American army staying in Poland. We will pay for some American utilities. We will pay for some American planes maybe or something like that. Not only Boeings, but some jet aircrafts and some army equipment. But then also we have to have some money to pay for that. So let us in your markets. So this is how it should be.
This is a fair position. Sir, thank you very much. Maciej Hutkiewicz of TVP3 Warsaw was our guest, and that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Good evening, this is Poland Daily Weather. Tomorrow in Poland, the maximum temperature will be 9 degrees Celsius. In the west, around Zielona Góra, also in Wrocław and in Krakow. Some showers will appear in the area of Wrocław, but the rest of the country should remain dry. The minimum temperature tomorrow will be 2 degrees Celsius around Olsztyn as well as in Białystok. Warsaw will see 5 degrees. 6 degrees will be seen in Łódź as well as in Bydgoszcz. If we look at the forecast in Europe for tomorrow, we will see that there will be a lot of sun around Minsk, but with only -2 degrees, also in Vilnius 1 degree, Prague 8 degrees with full sun as well, Stockholm 0 degrees, and 3 degrees in Oslo, but with some clouds as well. Some snow will appear in the area of Moscow, Russia, with 1 degree Celsius, and the warmest tomorrow will be 21 degrees in Madrid, Spain. This is all for tonight. Thank you.
The Life Under Communism Museum allows younger generations to better understand their parents' past, whilst those who lived through the period will be able to reminisce about both the brighter and darker sides of the People's Republic of Poland. The museum is filled with souvenirs and symbols of a bygone era, which provides an authentic background to discuss this recent but simultaneously already distant era. The museum was founded by Rafał and Marta Patla, who are the owners of the Adventure Warsaw Company. The initial idea was to collect a few items and family memorabilia to create a flat modeled on communist times in the garage in Soho factory. Today, the exhibition is over 260 square meters of space filled with stories, exhibits, and pictures. The location is not coincidental as it perfectly fits with the museum's main theme. Constitution Square is the flagship district of communist architecture.
I'm here with Rafał Patla, and we're here at the PRL Museum. Rafał, you're the owner of the museum. Welcome to Poland Daily Culture.
Welcome.
So, first of all, I'd like to ask you, when did the museum first open?
Well, the museum was open like 3 weeks ago, but that's the new location. The past museum we had in Praga district, it was open in 2013. 3 times smaller and much more alternative location, and basically a completely different exhibition, slightly different exhibition. This is the new face and much wider subjects that we wanted to talk about.
So tell us, what is the main idea behind the museum?
Basically, we wanted to show, talk about life in general of people in communist times. This is what, in our opinion, is the most interesting for people. But the change is that we want to also explain the history with a timeline, the history of the beginning. We want to explain how it all and why it started, where it comes from. So all the propaganda of the 50s and centralization of economy and so on. Then we go into subjects from life, so the apartment, for the cinema with propaganda movies from different decades. We have these tunnels with shops with different Polish products like soaps, like washing powders, chocolates, and so on and so on. We have this street, so the idea is that we are outside of the tunnels, we are on the street. Mm-hmm. So we talk about, we see Polish Fiat, we see telephone box, we see soda water machine, which is the only one in Poland, I suppose. Automotive, so it's really unique. We have a coffee place, and always we try to show 2 faces. One hand side, milk bar with simple chairs, like we sit, simple tables with simple design, and on the other hand, empty hooks in the shop, and on the other hand side, there were coffee places which had design, which were really interesting to sit, where intelligentsia met, and we had restored a coffee bar called Antyczna, where we have the murals that were used to be there, lamps, and so on and so on. So we are trying to show these 2 faces everywhere, and basically the museum is about the communist times, which were not black and white.
Tell me, what is generally speaking, the most popular feature of the museum? What do you think really captures people's imagination more than anything else here?
Well, basically, for sure, objects itself and the way we exhibit the objects. When you see, usually you see these, let's say, radios or vacuum cleaners in the storages or in places where you can't focus on it. When you see it in a white background and it's not with no neighborhood, just empty object, then you start to watch it as a part of the history. Yeah? You watch it in a different way. So the way we show some let's say everyday things surprise our guests, which they used to use it. Yeah, they used to have it.
Yeah.
And now when they see it in the museum and it's an exhibition, they are surprised. They are shocked. They think, "Oh, I'm old." It's already in the museum. But it's the case that the times has changed so much, and it's such a short time that that surprised people. It's only 30 years of difference, but it's like, you know, epoch from dinosaurs.
Yeah, I suppose it's, you know, people are used to coming into a museum, looking at something, and it tends to be, you know, much older from a sort of bygone era, not from an era where people are kind of still alive, and that's the kind of thing which is maybe difficult for people to get their head around.
Yeah, that's shocking.
So I understand that you provide lessons also at the museum. Can you tell us what's the thinking behind the lessons, and what kind of messages are you trying to get across?
Yeah, basically, our mission is to say all the story of solidarity also. Yeah, because this is, in my opinion, the brightest story that we had in last many years. Yes. It's amazing to see that, to explain that, to talk about you know, August 1980, to talk about all the martial law story, then the elections. So that story for me is just amazing to talk about, and that's important to talk about. But also we try to explain them what was socialism, yeah, because it was socialism, no communism. But how people could live in central planning economy. Yeah? So for young people, this is the place, on one hand side, to give some information, but on the other hand side, just show life. And that have to be balanced, because they would never, let's say, they would never remember 1 hour of historical speech of the 50 years of communist times. When you give a bit of information and then show some object and give a bit of information, then they can focus on that.
I understand that, you know, your approach to the museum is to show a kind of balanced point of view of, you know, maybe the darker side and the lighter side, a kind of 50-50 approach. Do you think the visitors come generally, though, with a sort of more serious approach, or do they generally kind of perceive it in a more light-hearted way?
Depends on the age of visitors. Surprisingly, what I expected is that elder visitors, so people that used to live in these times and they remember it very well, in my opinion, they would expect to see the dark side of life, yeah, to see all this terror and so on. But they are not coming for that. They are coming to go back to their memories. They are coming back to their younghood. They are looking for an easy story, because the dark story they already experienced. So they are not looking for that. They know that. They experienced that. So they are coming to bring back memories, to feel like in the past times. Because, like everywhere, there were two sides of life. No? On one hand side, empty hooks, lines, terror, propaganda, and so on and so on and so on. And on the other hand side, there was this life, yeah? Everyday life of people, much more easy, much more social life. People were much closer to each other, and many people miss that, yeah? In these crazy times today. No?
When I'm walking around this museum, one of the first things that I thought is, where do you get your artifacts from? Is there like a specific source, or where do they come from?
Well, it took me 10 years to collect all this stuff. I started in my basement. Yeah, my father didn't throw out, like half of population didn't throw out things because they can be useful in the future. So I found the first interesting items in my basement. Then I went to my grandma, my aunts. So basically we started from the family. Basically it all started from the city tours that I do. I'm a guide in Warsaw. We do tours in old retro vans. And I started doing it by buying the retro van step by step and showing alternative sides of Warsaw, off the beaten path. Yeah? And talking with foreign guests after these many hours with them, I found out that they are very interested in life of people in communist times. And there was no such a background, no such a space in Warsaw to show that. So I started to collect it and gathered it in a garage first. So I took them to my garage, served some vodka, and talk about life. So we have created a little kind of a flat where they could see all these objects. You know? And then it grow, and then we move it to other place, bigger, and finally we are here.
So do you find yourself kind of actively looking for more new old items to add, or is it you've just not got enough space?
No, people are bringing us all the time items.
Yeah.
They are, they don't want to throw it out on the rubbish, so they are bringing it us. Look, I can't throw it out. It's in good shape. And I say, thank you, but it's my number 10 adapter, yeah, or something, or radio. So I can't bring it more. Then I have a problem to throw it out by myself because someone gave it to me, so I can't throw it out. And I can't put it everywhere here because we also focus on Polish things. And I have many DDR, CCCP products now, which I can show, which are interesting. But we focus on Polish stuff, no? Basically, there is no problem to get. When you look for a specified item, like I was looking now for a food ration card for sugar from 1976. And that was very hard to get. Internet helps.
Why were you looking for something as a food ration card for sugar from...
Because that was the first food ration card that was introduced in June 1976. And in our timeline, we wanted to show the first one card. So that was very important because it's much different than the one that is popular from the 80s. But I found it on the internet, of course. So we have to look for it and buy it, yes? Also the same with the pictures. We have to buy rights to show pictures and so on. The case of the culture, which is still not done, we have one wall to talk about culture in these times, which was very, very rich. Cinema, movies, and so on and so on. It's so much to say that it's very hard to show it in one wall.
You're going to have to keep expanding.
Well, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rafał Patla. Thank you very much for joining us at Poland Daily Culture.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we dive deep into the history of the Polish nobility. The Polish nobility makes a very interesting case as they were more numerous and enjoy more political power than their European counterparts. They even managed to start a political system based on elective monarchy. Today, we will talk to our special guest, Jon Dąbrowski, a philosopher and a member of the Polish nobility. The Second World War is a very catastrophic event for the Poles and especially the noble class. I was wondering to what degree did they suffer and what are the effects?
Well,
in 1939 we had war not only with Germany but with Soviet Russia.
Right.
It started on the 1st of September and with Soviet Russia on the 17th of September. And Poland was divided in consequence of Pact Hitler-Stalin, called as well Pact Ribbentrop-Molotov, signed just before, at the end of month of August, just before the 1st September. And Poland was divided into three parts, because one part was incorporated into Germany, in Reich, in Dritte Reich, in Third Reich, yes. The other, the central part, Germans created a Generalgouvernement with capital in Krakow. And the governor was Dr. Frank, who was then executed after the World War II. And the third part, territorially the largest one, was invaded and incorporated to the Soviet Union. Because, yes, to the Soviet Union. So in all these three political bodies newly created, you had different situation. For example, in Germany, which is in Dritte Reich, Poles were deprived of their rights completely. They were supposed to leave, to abandon their goods. Yes, there were lists. There were lists prepared by special German troops, you know, and they were killing in public. In 1939 already in Wielkopolska and in Pomorze, they were killing people in public places, you know, to terrorize. And most or a big part of these victims were members of either Szlachta, which is gentry, or aristocracy, and clergy, of course, clergy, Catholic clergy, you know, but not only Catholic, Lutheran as well. They were persecuted, you know. And what concerns situation in Generalgouvernement, the Polish noblemen and aristocrats, they could remain in their domain. Mostly, you know. Sometimes they were deprived, but generally, you know, Germans were interested that these economic bodies, like they were in 1939, would give them crops, you know, because they needed food. They needed food for Germans, for armies, to well function, you know. So for well functioning. That part of Generalgouvernement was relatively well off. I mean, there were contribution, like everywhere in the world where you have big army occupying your country, but it was functioning. On the eastern part of Poland, it was a massacre, you know, because Bolsheviks, they chased out, they were killing, they were raping, you know, there was slaughter, and there were no rights at all, you know, for those people. They were the enemy of the people, so they were worse than the worst, you know. And this is how I can describe in 2 or 3 words these differences in situation and status of Polish name and aristocrats, you know. So they suffered a lot.
In 1944, the Soviet Red Army returned to Poland, and with it, the communist terror machine. The Polish nobility was one of the spheres of society that was hit the hardest as communists started implementing the ideology of class struggle. After the Second World War, the Soviet Red Army occupied Poland and implemented the communist system. And I can imagine that doesn't really fit well with the aristocracy.
Well, it didn't fit well, not even with aristocracy, but with noblemen, with gentry, with workers, with peasants, you know, because mostly 90% or 95 or whatever almost the whole nation didn't like it, you know, because we, before the World War II, we have very small communist party, you know, not big one, not like in Czechoslovakia, for example, where a communist party in Czechoslovakia was strong, had a natural support, you know, in Germany, not mentioning France, not mentioning Italy, you know, where it was massive movements, you know. You know, in Poland it was margin, political margin. So when communists started to build up new system, new era of the eternal happiness, what they did was that they nationalized industry, the whole industry by decree, and they sequestrated, they nationalized the land, the estates, you know. Everything over 50 hectares, and in the northern and western territories over 100 hectares was
all confiscated?
Was confiscated. But it was more complicated because no nobleman and no landowner and no aristocrat owning his domain, you know, his estate, was allowed by communist decree to approach closer than 30 kilometers to his estate. So on one hand, they confiscated, they said that up to 50 or 100 hectares you could preserve. On other hand, at the same time you had law persecuting you, forbidding you, you know, making, putting you in a position of a completely inferior, you know, in the social stratification. So you were losing from one day to another sources of existence. It was difficult to survive, you know. The ones, I must admit that the ones who signed special documents could receive kind of financial reward, you know, at a level of very, very small workers' wage or monthly payment, you know, for workers or farmers, you know. So if because there were some people who signed, some members of this, let's say, upper classes who signed those documents in 40s, and they were receiving for a couple of years after the World War II a kind of in zlotys, you know, kind of a reward, financial reward, but it was just enough to buy bread and bread, milk, you know, some grease or some a little bit of meat to survive, you know. It was not the money who were allowing you to live normally, you know. No.
Right. So
you didn't have. I'm sorry. You didn't have right to send your children to study, you know. My father, who passed exams in late 40s, he wanted to study archaeology because initially he wanted to be a lawyer, but they told him that he must be a lunatic, that a son of land gentry cannot become a lawyer in a communist country. So he chose an archaeology, and he passed exams, and for 6 or 7 months he was neither accepted nor dismissed, because he passed exams with excellent notes, you know. And Professor Manteuffel, who was one of the greatest scientists of that era, an old gentleman, he said it is impossible. It was Stalin era here in Poland, and that Professor Manteuffel in May or April, so practically at the end of academic year, he forced, you know, the authority at University of Warsaw that my father would study, however, this archaeology. I'm giving you this as an example how it was functioning.
Yeah, it's pretty oppressive, the whole
extremely
class
oppressive, extremely.
Exactly.
It was a revenge, ideological revenge, you know, over imposed over the superior classes.
Yeah, definitely. Like the Soviets focused really hard on the class warfare thing. So.
Yes, and they did the same in Russia. They were lunatics. They were mad, you know, because they were destroying the objects of arts, the goods they had. You know, they were burning down. It was a madness, complete madness.
As we learned today, the Polish aristocracy played an important role in Polish history, and also they formed the backbone of Polish cultural life. That's it for today. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Hello and welcome to Poland Daily Travel. Once again, we are on the royal route where we trip the light fantastic, checking out the most important sites along perhaps the most fabulous boulevard in the entire country of Poland. Yes, we'll be coming to you from the humidor room in the beautiful Rafał Europejski Hotel, newly refurbished and opened in 2017. This is one of the premier hotels not only in Poland, but in Europe itself. After leaving the Rafał Europejski, we'll head to the Royal Route, where we'll continue our walk, which started in the cathedral in the Old Town and continues today up to Nowy Świat. That is not just today, but for the next several days, we'll be on the Royal Route, and we'll be showing you all the ins and outs and what's important to know. It's an exciting trip. Poland Daily Travel, the best travel reporting about Warsaw that you've ever seen. Stay tuned.
Daily Travel, and we are still in the Holy Cross Church on Krakowskie Przedmieście in Warsaw, across the university. We were looking at the place where Frédéric Chopin's heart is still preserved in this column, but also behind me is a another marker and memorial to a very famous writer, Raymond, who won the Nobel Prize. I can't remember, do you remember what year it was?
1924.
1924, and his most well-known book, although I'm sure he wrote many good ones, but even I have heard of this one. It's called The Peasants, right?
And for this book, he got the Nobel Prize, even though he got it more than 20 years after he wrote the book. So it could be the idea that he got the Nobel Prize for his all literature material. Also in the same year, he wrote a book of the revolt, which represents an idea of a farm when animals take over the power, and now exactly.
What do you? That sounds familiar.
That sounds familiar. He published this book in 1924, in the same year when he got the Nobel Prize.
Oh yeah, is that what inspired Eric Blair to write his book?
How about George Orwell?
Oh, that's what I meant. Yeah.
And,
not Eric Blair,
and then,
George Orwell.
Yes, but when we hear it ringing, then ideas come to our mind. And exactly, George Orwell was the one who wrote his book that was published in 1945. Officially, we don't know if George Orwell knew about the book of Raymond. But either way, the idea of animals uprising and setting new order that turns out to be just a new abuse is the idea of Bolshevik revolution.
So Raymond was comparing it to the Bolshevik revolution, and then Orwell also used a similar motif to talk about Stalinism.
Exactly.
Did I get that right?
Exactly.
You're the smart guy.
Well, it turns out that this is a small but cosmopolitan world that we are living in.
Okay, so that's Władysław Raymond, Nobel Prize winner in 1924. But there have been several Polish Nobel Prize winners. Sienkiewicz was one. Joseph Conrad was another.
Who was also
who was born
up
Polish.
in this area, exactly.
In which area?
So we are having also Wiesława Szymborska, our Nobel
from Krakow.
Prize winner, exactly.
She's a poet, And she won recently, like 15, 20 years ago.
That's our latest Nobel Prize winner.
20 years ago, I guess, yeah.
And Czesław Miłosz.
And Miłosz, who's an amazing poet.
Exactly.
And not only, but a great
Yes.
poet. Yeah.
So this is when it comes to our literature, and probably all of them were visiting this church that we are in at the moment.
So, but there are a lot of other, I mean, this is very important for memorials, this church, isn't it? Because I saw some for other famous people, General Sikorski and others. Here is above our heads, higher up.
Adam Mickiewicz, by the way,
Mickiewicz again.
Polish writer.
Yeah, poet, Pantadeusz.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We were talking about.
I called him. We talked about him. We had his statue.
Yes,
yeah.
and Adam Mickiewicz, as far as he was born in 1798, was given this plaque above our heads for 200th anniversary of his birth. By the way, on 100th anniversary on his birth, we put the first Polish sculpture of Adam Mickiewicz in Poland, just steps away from here.
Yeah, which we already saw on the street.
Which we already
a few days ago. But no Mickiewicz heart. The heart of Remont, the heart of Chopin, and the heart of Warsaw. Poland Daily, stick with us. We're at the Holy Cross Church, and we are on the royal route, and we're not going to stop till we cover every inch of it, all the way to Wilanów Palace. So, lots of episodes to come. Stick with us.
John Paul II was an amazing pope, an amazing Polish man, and also an amazing philosopher. He was the one who explained us, Polish people, that so many years of having problems, so many years of being divided into another countries, these are the years that we should appreciate. We shouldn't be jealous about the nations of Austria, Germany or France, that they have their independence just because they have it. Because when it's very difficult to achieve something, when it's so tough, then when you manage one day, you appreciate it more. So it's our philosophy, it's part of our nation, and it's part of this particular land to understand these very difficult moments. And he gave us faith, he gave us strength. We were praying using 3 days, using 3 words on that day, the 2nd of June, 1979. We were praying, we want God. This is the only thing that we were asking for during this 1 million people mass on Marshal Józef Piłsudski Square. Nowadays, we call this man a rock, to as Petrus, Latin inscription written on the rock right beneath John Paul II sculpture in here in the Holy Cross Church in Warsaw's Royal Route. We refer his words and we refer his personality to a rock that's everlasting, that will survive everything, just as our nation did eventually. We are thankful, we remember about him, and we undoubtedly claim that John Paul II has been the most important Polish man in our history.